AI shouldn't be a threat to human being, but it's supposed to be a powerful weapon or tool to empower everyone and leading us toward a more brighter future.
Thank you for joining the Transform Impossible, which is India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me Mr. Stanley Chan, who is a sci-fi writer, screenwriter, and a columnist. He has garnered numerous literary awards, including Taiwan's Dragon Fantasy Award and China's Galaxy and Nebula Awards. He is the author of Waste Tide and the recently launched Artificial Intelligence 2041, 10 Visions of a Future, which is co-authored by none other than Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, a global thought leader in the AI community, a venture capitalist and former president of Google China. Stanley has previously worked for Google, Baidu, and VR motion capture startup Norton Technology. He currently runs Thema Movie Studio, which explores cross-media speculative narratives and future-oriented education. He is also an evangelist of sustainability and technology for good. So, Stanley, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on the show. So, let's get into the conversation with the new book, your new book, AI-2041, 10 Visions of a Future. What is the book about and what does the book say?
Yeah, thanks, Eddie, for having me here. It's quite a pleasure to have this conversation and can have my voice heard and saw by all this audience across the world. So very exciting. The forthcoming book, AI 2041, is co-authoring with Dr. Kai-Fu Lee. So he's the expert of artificial intelligence and also the a very successful CEO, ex-CEO of China, Google China, and also Microsoft. And right now he's running the venture capital Sino-Venture in China and all around the world. So it was quite a pleasure to work with him on this book because I used to write by myself as a solo, right? So it's science fiction. You can do whatever you like. But this book, from the very beginning, we built from scratch. Is supposed to be a book combined with science fiction with technology analysis. So we did a lot of research in this industry. We interviewed AI scientists, scholars, entrepreneurs, researchers over the last 2 years. So we try to figure out the most realistic roadmap for the AI development over the next 20 years. And we segment it into different technology points, like natural language processing, like facial recognition, like deepfake, etc., etc. So we package all this technology point into different stories, like 10 stories, which will happen around the world in 10 different cities and 10 different countries, including Mumbai in India. So it's quite an unusual experience of writing this book. So we try to create this kind of positive imagination of the future together with AI technology, how human beings coexist with AI and how individual and the societies should proactively respond to the future challenges. And maybe there's some potential risk for sure, but we try to deliver this message that AI shouldn't be a threat to human being, but it's supposed to be a powerful weapon or tool to empower everyone and leading us toward a more brighter future.
Lovely. Yeah. So I think maybe in getting into an exciting space, this 10 years, I think, is going to be the greatest technological transition. And
Yes.
what comes next is going to be completely magical. You said to write the book, you had actually spoken to a lot of scientists, researchers, and plus you had one of the most foremost mind or thought leaders in artificial intelligence, Dr. Kaifu himself. There is two narratives, when it comes to artificial intelligence. The narrative when it's in America that, oh, because of Hollywood, it's all gloom and doom. That artificial
Right.
intelligence is going to be in a case for existential risk, and these thoughts are endorsed by leaders such as Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, and so on and so forth. So there's a long list. Then there's a narrative by the global tech community, China, and including India, and I'm sure a lot of other nations, that artificial intelligence can only do good. Now you have done some serious research. I'm sure you must have spoken to the best minds, and your co-author is Dr. Kai-Fu Lee himself. So what is the fact and what is the fiction? Can you break that down for my audience, as in the potential risk and the transformation that mankind is going to see in the next 10 or 20 years?
The reality is quite complicated, and it's a mixture of the both. For example, I'll unfold a little bit of the first story, The Golden Elephant, which is set in Mumbai in India. So there'll be a very advanced AI insurance program which can collecting all this data, your daily behavior, your consuming habits, and your driving records, your health record, your medical care record. So everything, it will calculate it and come up with a dynamic insurance fee. So it's dynamic, it's changing all the time according to your behavior. There's good side, but there also be bad side. The good side is you can adjust yourself by eating more healthier food, and you drive more careful, and you're doing more exercise, etc., to reduce your insurance fee. But otherwise, there's still something, because we're feeding this algorithm with data, and it actually reveals some hidden structure of the discrimination within the society. For example, we all know that the caste system is already banned legally back in the 1950s, right, in India. But in reality, I suppose you're supposed to be the one who knows better than me.
Exactly.
There's
It's quite terrible.
a lot of
right?
bias, discrimination, inequality unfold in the story. Like in the future, those who suffer in the past might suffer even more in the future. So because there are those vulnerable groups, they don't have this kind of accessibility and comprehension of the technology, so they couldn't fight for their rights. So I think we have to adjust those algorithm and equation in a smarter way to make it more equal benefits for everyone. So AI is for everyone, not just for the privileged people, right? Not just for those well-educated, super rich class. That is totally wrong.
Right. So you mentioned about, we'll talk about The Golden Elephant, the story that it's one of the stories which is set
Yes.
in Bombay. First, have you been to Bombay?
Not yet.
Right.
Yeah, but
I really hope and I wish that you visit, because it's a beautiful city. It
yes.
moves 24 hours, and I live in Bombay. And you painted a picture which is a little dystopian. Yes, obviously, data is going to be the key for everything going forward, because more and more everything is a pattern, and the more data that we collect, we will eventually understand that pattern.
Yes.
And from that pattern, we will be able to take out information or benefits of what the pattern suggests, and then obviously we can move accordingly. Now you mentioned
Right.
that I mean your story is dystopian, which has got a dystopian end for the vulnerable lot who do not have access to this technology. Do you see technology playing a role in creating an equitable future? Because it's not just artificial intelligence. There's a technology such as AR, VR, MR, which can democratize education. Then there's blockchain, which can create more transparency and take out the middleman out of the picture, and possibly
Right.
create a open, decentralized future. So I do hear you when you say that the technology community creates a very utopian, paints a very utopian future. But I am someone who treads the middle path, like a protopian future. So do you see a future where, if we take the right choices, technology could be that tool which could create an equitable and a sustainable future for all?
Yes, for sure. As you mentioned, like the AR, VR, XR technology, and also with the blockchain, and also the new materials technology, and also this kind of green energy, etc. So we all mention, or this there are also elements in the story as well, together with the AI technology, because we think AI will be the infrastructure, fundamentally change everything, and it can connect all these dots and shape a more sustainable future, for sure. For example, in the final story, it actually happened in Australia. We portray a society which, like Australia, already fulfill the demand of all its citizens, because they have this kind of green energy using the wind, the sea, and the clean hydrogen energy. So it actually built up this green grid that can fulfill everyone's support, and also it create this kind of system that can have this basic income credit card, so every citizen actually can pay their food, their water, education, medical care with this card. So they actually have more time and energy to fulfill themselves by self-actualization. So therefore, the government create a new digital currency, which is virtually encourage everyone to purchase the love, belonging, and this self-actualization in the system. So we actually try to imagine that kind of utopian future where, like, everyone has this great opportunity. They are no longer suffer from this scarcity of the material, but they have this fully abundant time and efforts. They can purchase whatever they love and have passion on. So that's the story about how indigenous people, especially in Australia, as a post-colonial country, so those indigenous people suffer a lot from history. They was called the stolen generation, because in the past they have to fight for their food. They have to fight very hard to get the same pay as other people. So I think in the future we should build up this kind of this utopian system, so that everyone should have their chance to self-actualize. So that's one of the story, and there's also some other stories. For example, there's one story might explore a little bit of the dark side, because we talk about autonomous weapon, which actually is driven by AI, and also drones, um, autonomous manufacturing and blockchain, etc. So maybe only one man can create this kind of terrorism, which is a great threat to the whole world. So, but it also connects to the eco disaster because the protagonist is a quantum physics scientist, and his family actually was suffer and died by a mountain fire happened in California, which is actually the outcome of the climate change. So actually there's a reflection of both sides because when we develop the AI technology so fast, the acceleration actually is also on the global warming because when you're using GPT-3, it actually requires so huge amount of computation power. So it needs a lot of electricity, accelerating the whole process of global warming. So actually, we have to see in different way. So this is the story of how people using technology to go against technology. So I hope you can read the ending because we still left some hope there because we believe we have to grab something like we believe in. There's some future is worth fighting for because after the pandemic, even now, I think there's so many people suffering from this virus. So I think we have to build up this kind of confidence to the people so we can, towards this futuristic perspective, we can think of what's the most practical thing we have to change from now on and step by step leading us towards that positive future. Otherwise, I think human beings are doomed. You know, our civilization is driving towards the cliffs.
Right. So would you like to maybe delve a little bit more on that? Because I hear you when you say that we are on a race to almost nowhere. Can we talk a little bit more about the existential risk of these technologies?
In Europe, we have this kind of very strict law against those tech giants and against their collecting and abusing information and data from the users. But some other parts in the world actually is not that fully regular. So the tech giants can also like collecting all this data whenever they love, and that's I think it's a huge risk there. So because you don't know what kind of parties they are using your data and what's the usage, and if they were leaked, who's gonna use those like as criminals? They might steal your data and they might use the deepfake to create a fake you. So it actually can surpass all this security check and it can like do whatever they like. So steal all your money from the bank, your bank account, or it can create something like spreading on social media, but it's actually not you, but it was created by AI. So that's actually is happening now. So around the world, even more discrimination and bias when you're using AI not cautiously enough. When you do the recruitment, you have AI to scan all this resume, but actually it's like kind of self-enhancement. It can only pick up those who can meet the standard of the HRs. So they might amplify the gender issue and also the racist bias there. So that's one thing I can see for now. So it's definitely a lot of issues there might be amplified and might be triggered by technology. The problem is each country just think alone. We didn't build up this kind of international collaboration because we are all facing the same issues there. And we need a lot of know-how and local knowledges to work together to build up a more like flexible or like feasible framework to for all those big tech giants, because they are international, they are across the boundaries. But right now I can see it's like everyone fight for their own. So it's not for all the stakeholders. So I would say it's quite stupid there because we can only see our backyard, but actually no one can escape from this planet. So we are all this planetary sapient or planetary species. So if we don't work together, I can see this kind of regulation or like it will fail anyway. I'm kind of pessimistic, but also optimistic at the same time, because I think we need to create some consensus after the pandemic. So beyond the ideology, beyond the politics, beyond the cultures. So we have to reunion as one civilization and one human being. So we have to think and to confront the challenges all together. But I know it's totally difficult. It sounds just like some hippie talk. But besides that, I couldn't see any way out.
So you're saying the only way for us to survive and thrive is to collaborate.
Yes.
Throw away our differences and join hands to innovate and create a better future.
Yes.
And in some ways, I hear you, because I guess that's the only way we can go forward, because most of the nation, like even India and China, we have created so much friction,
Yes.
rather than friendliness. And then there is obviously there is a huge almost like a war going on between US and China, because China, after such a long time, has figured a space for itself, and it's maturing technologically. And it will not be wrong to say that at this point in time, China is amongst one of those global technology superpowers, or at least going towards there. But then there are obviously, there's a lot of friction or narrative from the country leaders, not the people in general, but the leaders of the country, which creates disharmony amongst the people. What do you think can be done to unite? Is it too utopian, or will leaders understand the value of uniting? Because yes, we are anyway staring towards a climate crisis, a serious climate crisis. Just the month of April, over 101 Nobel laureates wrote a letter saying that we have almost reached a point of no return. Then there is these technologies which are growing exponentially, and we are all in a race, including India, China, to get an advantage. Because if you get an advantage, you will become a global superpower. So far history has seen one global superpower. It's always been America. Is that the way forward? Is that the way it should be? If not, what do you think can be done to create a framework where everybody reaches out? I mean, I have so many Chinese friends, and I really respect what China is doing, but somehow there's always been a block. I mean, both from my country side and your side. What is it that we can do to create a cohesive ecosystem, a collaborative framework for the people mostly of around the world, so that we understand that there is so much business opportunity and to even to better our lives? Is it too utopian, or is there a way out to create a framework like this?
I know what I mean. I think this kind of mindset actually is the heritage from the industrial revolution stage. So because we have to compete in this arm race, we have to fight for this finite resources like land, like oil, etc., etc. So then we can survive. I think that's the mindset for the last stage. So right now, I think we're facing the new stage, which is like this kind of technology exploded exponentially, and also we are facing this kind of uh, global planetary challenges or even disaster, you can call it, like the pandemic, climate change, pollutions, and also maybe the threat from outer space. So I think right now it's time to break out the previous mindset to build up the new one. I think you have to considering the game is infinite. We're not compete with each other to fight for this limited resources, but altogether we have to create, develop the new technology which might take us out of the earth and explore, expedite into the deeper space, and we might build up our base of our foundation on moon, even on Mars. So that's the way we need to do it. But I know this consensus is so difficult to build up, right? Because every country has their own interests. We have our own politics, cultures, and ideologies. So for now, I didn't see an easy outcome, but I think storytelling is the only way to create this consensus. So that's actually in Homo sapien and in the book. So they say like the ability of narrative, of storytelling actually is the only ability we're distinguished from the animals. I think that's true. So science fiction actually is that kind of the ability to connect everyone.
Right. So what we need is a narrative from a global leader who everyone follows, and the narrative has to be that the only way to go forward and become spacefaring civilization is when we collaborate, and that was plain to see, because through the pandemic, the only reason we were able to create a vaccine in such a short period of time, because the entire globe came together. Some of the brightest minds joined hands, interacted, and worked together, and that's the reason we could create a vaccine so fast. So I hope that we understand that, and we work towards that. Now, coming back to the vaccine, now the entire world was completely caught off guard when it came to the pandemic. Is it because of a lack of trying to know what the future holds, or lack of complete interest of what tomorrow may hold, or no understanding of the foresight is the reason we are in this situation? Do you think that if we had a better imagination, or a framework, or an organization who can understand and read the future, would that organization with the knowledge be able to possibly mitigate this impact? Do you think that education institutes should create a futurist curriculum so that everybody is some sort of a creative storyteller, a sci-fi writer, somebody who understands the future and knows what the future holds, so that you know that this is the problem which is coming, and then you can better prepare for it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, because right now in China, actually, we're doing that. So in a lot of schools, like universities or high school, even primary schools, we have this kind of class, which is helping the student to develop this kind of imagination towards the future. So try to help them to build up this futuristic scenario analysis or narrative ability. So I think that's starting from this couple of years, maybe the previous 3 years. So even the government, the states are highly encouraging the industry to do this kind of thing. So I think that's a totally reasonable and rational way to do that. There must be some methodology. China, since last year, we claim that we will leading towards the carbon neutral in 2060. So you can see there's a lot of futuristic scenarios was raised across industries and also individual lifestyles. So we have to build up this whole thing. So I think science fiction or popularized science, they has to be penetrate into the class and penetrate into our daily life. So that's the way we can change and shift the mindset of each citizen. And that's the way how we can move and behave together to take the action and to create this future together. Otherwise, it's gonna be impossible, because you couldn't force people to abandon their oil car and switch to electric cars. So that's not gonna be possible unless you make them believe that's the right way to do it. So I can see all the things right now happening around China. So I think there must be something we can do all together all around the world.
You had written a short story called The Fish of Lijiang, which is
Yes.
About an artificially engineered world. In 1977, writer Philip K. Dick, he had given a press conference where he
Yes.
claimed that the entire world that we live in is simulated, that we are living in a simulated world.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality.
Endorsed by a lot of people, from Elon Musk to Neil deGrasse
Yes.
Tyson to
Yes.
Joshua Bach to Donald Hoffman to some of the greatest physicists alive.
Right. Right.
But then there's a certain section of people, where as soon as you tell them that the entire world or universe that we live in could be simulated, they say that this is a conversation which is senseless and it's a waste of time, because just knowing that whether a world is simulated or not doesn't help you. But isn't curiosity the basic of who we are? So shouldn't we know if the world is simulated, if it is or not? So what are your views on the simulation hypothesis?
Yeah, actually, I just read that book, the simulation hypothesis. And also I've read some paper from Max Tegmark back in I think it's 90s, is talking about the mathematical universe. So actually, the universe we live in is a mega mathematical structure, which seems quite plausible to me. And I think I'm one of the believer that our world is on some certain level of simulation. But it doesn't mean we don't have the free will, or we don't have the power to choose our future, right? So because deep down, like fundamentally, everything is information. So that's totally what I believe in. So from quantum typology theories, material is information, is energy. So they're totally the same. So just how deep you can look into that. So if that is the case, considering our consciousness actually is the process of computation, or there's some uncertain level of quantum effects there, like what Roger Penrose mentioned back in the 80s. So that is to say, you can totally change the physical world through this process of thinking, right? So each thought, each idea matters. So that's the way how we change the world, because we write books, we tell stories, we make movies, we sing songs. All those things actually is changing a little bit of the consciousness among the people. So altogether, the conventions is some kind of power beyond our imagination. And there's some power actually can change and shift the real world. So I think that's my take, my approach on the simulation hypothesis. I think that's the positive way, because I don't think we don't have the right. We're just puppets. We're just simulation and NPC, which was manipulated by some higher dimensional intelligence. But I think there's still something here, still something we can choose, and still something we can take action. So that's my take on this.
Right. So is any of your books going to be turned into? Are you talking to Bollywood? Because Bollywood is also like we have. Yeah. So is there anything that you're working on development where your books are being turned into?
Yes, actually, yeah. I have several projects ongoing, under development. So one is Waste Time. Right now, I'm working with a very senior film producer. We try to make it into a TV series or a movie. So it's on developing. And some other projects like Fish of Lijiang, as you mentioned, we're also discussing on the adaptation. So many projects are ongoing.
You know, both of our countries, India and China, we have the demographic dividend. We are the two largest populated countries in the world. But then there is not much happening between our nations. As in, there is so much can be done, you know, because our startup community from India, or we've got a very thriving startup community, and so is China. Why isn't something being done? What is stopping the government? What is stopping the tech community from building bridges and creating an ecosystem that works for both nations? Do you see that as a possibility? Do you think something like that can be done? Because I am constantly speaking here to the startup community. I'm also engaging the government in ways to understand the opportunity that new technologies present, but getting them to create an engagement or a bridge seems to be difficult. What is the problem? Do you think there's a way out? Can we do something about this?
Yeah, I think it's the politics and the ego stop us from build up this bridge. Is like always back in the history, because both India and China, we have this kind of long history, and where there's so many curtains like cut off our communication and connections, so we couldn't see the real each other. We just see the reflection of our fear or anxious anxiety. So actually we can only see a false enemy, which is our own projection. So that's something which happened not just now, but back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Is all all along the history. So I think that there's, I think from the cultural perspective, like the artists, like the writers, like the children's, we all have the more open mindset, and we are more friendly to each other. We are totally inclusive to embrace the differences between two different nations. And also I have so many Indian friends, and I'm actually seeking for my Nadi leaf. If you know that's the case, is some fortune telling ancient message which is stored in India for like thousands of years. So I have strong curiosity and interest on Indian culture. So I would love to have all this kind of opportunity to build up this conversation, like from a more cultural, like storytelling perspective. So I think that's totally opened up a little bit of the mindset of two countries. So I think that's the only way we can do it for now. So yeah.
There is so much differences that we project rather than a commonality.
Yes.
So the narrative throughout history, I think, by religion or elders has been that, oh, that's China, and this is India. It might sound a little utopian, but we are all the same, and we are living in this one world, a blue dot, which is completely insignificant in this huge universe, expanding universe of ours.
Right.
Now, only if we drop those differences and understand that if we collaborate, like I mentioned, that there is so much opportunity and so much that we can do together. If we all come together, I think we can create a great future. I consider myself as a messenger.
Yes.
And that's what I do, and that's the reason I reach out, and I am trying to pass this message across that the people are not different, and it's only if we take away the blocks and understand that we are all similar, we can leverage each other's benefits. Like you mentioned, the culture, there is great history of each of a country's culture and uniqueness. Now, if those uniqueness we understand and take away, I think we will have personal growth and a more unique place in this globe. So thank you, Stan. It was a complete pleasure talking to you about your journey, your insights on artificial intelligence. Wish you the very best for your book, AI 2041, 10 Visions of the Future. Would you like to leave my audience with a parting note on something that you have not shared with anyone, but where you would like the audience about what the future holds for the world this 10 years, according to you?
Thanks, Eddie. The pleasure is mine. So I think in the next 10 years, so there's probably a lot of huge dynamic change will happen, like country level or individual level. So I think everyone should be very prepared. So this preparation should be made on different level, like financial level, security level, but also like your spiritual level. So for sure, I totally believe the outer sustainability, like the environment, like the ecosystem, are so connected with your inner sustainability. So you have to uplift the level of your self-awareness. You have to be intelligent, and you have to be sober, and you know what's the position and what's the mission of yourself on this planet, on this universe. So I think totally agree with you. You are a messenger. I'm the messenger. And what our goal is to deliver the message to the people. So I hope our effort is not in vain. So I hope the more people receive our message, the better the world might be. So that's my words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stan. Really appreciate it. Yes, I mean, yeah, I hope that more people understand this and understand that we live in a beautiful world. I mean, as insignificant and as small this planet of Oz is, this is home, and this is what makes us all unique. And this is the planet which makes us happy. And we are at the cusp of a great technological change, and these technologies can equally transform us and disrupt us, and we have to take the right choices. If we take the right choices, we create a better future, and if we don't, the world comes to an end. On that note, thank you for being part of the Transform Impossible podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you, Stan.